You know, those conversations, maybe those interactions, that just leave you kind of scratching your head, wondering what really just went down.
Uh-huh. That feeling of confusion.
Exactly. Well, today we've got this fascinating set of notes, a deep dive into something our source actually calls female psychic attack.
Yeah, and look, before anyone gets the wrong idea, this isn't about like actual mind-reading powers or anything supernatural.
Not at all.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here, based on this material,
Mhm.
are those actions maybe, or even just small things someone says, that plant seeds of confusion, maybe doubt.
Right. Think about communication that sort of dances around the real point. Maybe it's to avoid being direct, or maybe it's just about keeping your attention without really giving anything back.
It's definitely not the same as someone just being straight up and saying, hey, look, I'm not interested.
Exactly. The source even gives that specific example, a woman clearly saying she's seeing someone else. Okay, maybe a bit blunt, sure, but you know where you stand.
No question marks left hanging. That's the key difference, isn't it? The doubt isn't there.
Yeah, because these so-called attacks, according to the source, they work through what's not said, the implications.
Right. The unspoken stuff hanging in the air that kind of throws you off balance.
Yeah.
And the source highlights a couple of main scenarios where this tends to pop up.
Okay, so the first one involves a woman who might be genuinely ambivalent, uncertain about her own feelings, but she just maybe can't or won't articulate that clearly, like saying, I'm not sure.
And that lack of clarity, that vagueness, can feel really unsettling on the receiving end, right?
Definitely. Then there's the other scenario, which the source suggests might be a bit more, well, conscious.
Okay.
It's the idea of a woman who isn't actually interested romantically, but maybe enjoys the attention she gets from admirers. The source actually uses the term orbiters.
Orbiters. Huh. Okay.
And it suggests this can sometimes be a way for women, maybe particularly those who feel a bit insecure despite being, conventionally attractive, to get that steady validation.
That makes a certain kind of sense. And there's another angle mentioned too, isn't there?
Yeah, it touches on how if a woman is maybe dealing with her own messy situation with someone else, she might use another guy, maybe you, the listener, kind of like an emotional support.
Or to boost her own self-image while she's focused elsewhere. It sounds quite complicated.
It can be a tangled web, yeah.
Ever felt like that guy?
Yeah.
It kind of slides into that classic, eternal AFC or nice guy thing the source mentions. You become the confidant, the safe shoulder to cry on.
Uh-huh. While her real energy and focus is all on someone else, probably someone who's keeping her guessing.
Anyone listening ever experienced that? Rings a bell. Okay, let's dig into some specific examples of these attacks from the source material, see how those unspoken things play out.
And it's worth remembering, the source notes the motive isn't always malicious, like trying to cause doubt on purpose. Sometimes it's just her own confusion.
But the end result for the guy involved often feels pretty similar, right? Confusion, doubt.
Exactly. So first example, the abbreviated evening.
Okay, paint the picture.
You've made plans, seems like things are set, and then either just before you meet up or maybe right as you do, she hits you with something like, oh, just so you know, I have to get up super early tomorrow, so we can't make this a really late night.
The early curtain call.
Yeah.
Okay, and the source interprets this how?
Often as a kind of subtle control move. The unstated message, the vibe being sent, is basically, look, I'm not really that attracted to you, so don't go getting any ideas about this going anywhere, physically or otherwise.
It's like setting the boundary way, way back before anything even happens, managing expectations downwards.
Pretty much. And the source suggests the kind of reaction she might be hoping for, maybe subconsciously, is for you to be almost apologetic, like, oh, okay, no problem, wouldn't want to keep you, sort of supplicating.
Right, folding immediately. But the response is suggested in our notes. They go in a totally different direction.
They really do. They flip the script. One approach is to just blow it off like it's a joke. Call it the hidden assumption with humor.
How would that sound?
Like saying, hey, don't worry about it. I've actually never been the kind of guy who believes in taking his time anyway. And then just bust out laughing, like hysterically.
Okay, a bit theatrical maybe?
Yeah, and then maybe follow it with a total non sequitur, something completely random, like, wow, speaking of late nights, did you see the Cubs finally won the World Series again? Just something totally off topic.
And the logic behind that working. Why does that land, according to the source?
It tackles that unspoken thing, the assumption about sex or intimacy, head on, but through humor. It kind of implicitly says, yeah, I get what you're really saying, and frankly, it's a bit immature.
So the over-the-top reaction subtly calls her behavior into question. it psychically attacks her back, in a way, by implying she's not being straightforward.
Exactly. It puts the awkwardness back on her indirectness. The other tactic suggested is, well, it's acting like you misunderstand completely.
How so?
Pretending you think her early morning comment means she's actually really eager to get physical quickly because she has to leave early.
Okay, that's a twist. Give me the dialogue.
Something like, well, normally I'm not one to, get physical really fast, but hey, if you need to get me drunk right away so we can get it on early, I guess I can make an exception. But you are definitely going to have to be the one to drive afterwards.
Wow, okay. That's bold.
Yeah, and the source emphasizes you need to be kind of extra aggressive with that implication afterwards. Really lean into the feigned misunderstanding.
So you take her implied let's slow down and you turn it into a comical let's speed way up. What's the point there?
It just throws her indirectness back in her face by taking it to this absurd conclusion. It highlights how awkward her communication was.
But the source makes a crucial distinction here, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If she had said something honest, like, hey, I'm very attracted to you, but I'm feeling a little scared about pushing things physically right now, that is not a psychic attack.
Right, because that's direct, it's vulnerable, maybe, but it's clear. You can respect that, talk about it.
Exactly. No hidden meanings, no games.
Okay, next example.
Let's do it. The so busy excuse. This one feels familiar. Oh, yeah. Phone tag, calls maybe not returned, texts left on read, then you bump into her somewhere socially.
And you get the line, oh my gosh, I've been meaning to call you, but I'm just so busy. Maybe with extra emphasis on the
so busy.
And the source drills down on the unspoken part of that sentence. What's implied?
Busy with things that are more important than you. That's the real message, isn't it?
Pretty much. It's like saying, you're just really not that high on my priority list, but I'm not going to come right out and say that.
And the source points out the damage isn't even necessarily that she thinks lowly of you, but it's the uncertainty it creates.
Exactly. That vague excuse, it plants doubt, makes you wonder, is it me? Am I not important enough? And that can kick off what the source calls the supplication cycle.
Restart trying harder, chasing more, trying to prove your worth.
Yeah. And this kind of dishonest, unclear communication, it installs uncertainty. And the source makes a blunt point here. Humans hate uncertainty.
So keeping you uncertain is actually a subtle way to gain compliance, or at least keep you engaged. It can be a primary compliance move, as the source puts it. It gives her a degree of control just by keeping you guessing.
Okay, so how does the source suggest responding to the so busy line?
With a similar kind of nonchalance, but flipping the implication. Something like, oh, I just assumed you were busy.
Okay, starting reasonably.
And then, anyone who could hang out with me and didn't would obviously have to be fucking...
Yeah.
Well, a total idiot, right? And you're certainly far from that, aren't you?
Whoa. Okay, that's got some edge.
It does. And the goal isn't necessarily to be insulting, but to introduce ambiguity from your side.
How so?
Now she's left wondering, was that sincere understanding or was it sarcasm? Does he really think I was just busy or does he think I'm an idiot for not making time for him?
Is he saying the other things she's doing are with idiots? Or that she's the idiot? It leaves her confused.
Exactly. It leaves her in that uncertain space she tried to put you in. It disrupts her move by not playing along predictably.
Interesting. Okay, let's look at the final example. This one involves an actual email exchange, right? The last-minute bullshit cancellation.
Yeah. So the setup is a woman, let's call her Michelle, emails to cancel a date just 5 hours beforehand.
Okay, short notice. What's the excuse?
She says she suddenly has to babysit for her boss, and she makes a point of mentioning her upcoming performance review is tied to helping the boss out.
The can't say no because career justification. Okay, but the source immediately points out what's missing from her email, right?
Absolutely. Critical point. There's zero positive language. No, I'm so bummed. No, let's definitely reschedule soon. No, I was really looking forward to it. Nothing.
Just the excuse and the cancellation.
Yep. And that absence is what creates the psychic attack, the uncertainty. Is the excuse legit? Is she still interested? Is this just a polite brush off? You're left completely hanging.
So the guy in this scenario is advised to send a specific kind of reply email. What does it say?
It acknowledges the cancellation, sure, but then it directly calls out that missing piece. Something like, got your email about canceling. I did notice you didn't mention anything about still wanting to get together, though.
Correct. Okay.
Then it poses a clear question. Should he just write this off, or does she genuinely value spending time together? He frames it carefully, saying he doesn't want to read into things or go where he's not welcomed.
And then a Polite closing, presumably. What's the strategy behind crafting it that way?
Okay, several layers here, according to the source. First, calling out what's missing implies he's perceptive, not easily fooled.
Right, he noticed the omission.
Second, it directly questions her intent. Is she trying to cause doubt? And subtly challenges her to prove she's better than that.
Gives her a chance to clarify, basically.
Third, it forces her hand by giving two clear choices. Write it off or confirm interest. No more ambiguity allowed.
Puts the ball squarely in her court.
And fourth, those reasons he gives, not wanting to misinterpret, not wanting to be unwelcome, they're totally valid reasons she pretty much has to agree with. It subtly positions him as the sensible, mature one.
Implicitly asking if she's equally sensible and mature. Is that the idea?
Exactly. He is sensible and smart, is SHE. It's a subtle probe about her maturity, wrapped in politeness. The overall tone is described as polite and apparently direct.
Okay, so what happened? How did Michelle reply to that email?
Her reply is incredibly revealing. She basically says his email confirmed her apprehension about continuing anything.
Translation, according to the source.
Translation, yeah, the babysitting thing was probably a lie, or at least not the whole story. She was blowing him off.
Okay, what else?
She then gets a bit defensive. She calls some poetry he'd apparently sent her earlier pretentious for someone she barely knew.
Ouch. Source's take on that.
That it's likely less about the poetry and more a confession about her. Maybe she's scared of that kind of openness or vulnerability.
Interesting interpretation. Anything else in her reply?
She says she's more reserved and moves slower.
Translation.
Again, likely confirmation the boss excuse wasn't the real reason. She's just not feeling it or wants to back away.
But then there's an apology, right?
Yes. Crucially, she admits she shouldn't have canceled the way she did and apologizes.
And the source sees that as?
Basically, she got caught in an indirect, arguably dishonest communication pattern, feels a bit foolish, and coughs up an apology. It's an admission, even if indirect.
And the big win for the guy here.
He saved himself potentially weeks or months of chasing someone who wasn't genuinely interested. He got clarity, even if it wasn't the answer he initially hoped for. Huge morale saver.
But the interaction didn't quite end there, did it? There was one more email suggested for him to send.
Right, a final follow-up. This one is described as a masterclass in polite dismissal.
Okay, what is it?
Starts friendly, thanks her. Says he understands perfectly, apologizes for any misunderstandings. Very gracious on the surface.
Okay, waiting for the turn.
Then it comes. He subtly contrasts people who appreciate directness with those who haven't quite reached that stage of their development yet.
Ooh, okay. Implying she's in the latter category.
Pretty clearly, yeah. Then he apologizes again, almost mockingly, for having disrupted her right to move and discover at your own pace.
Wow. That's dripping with subtext.
And it ends with a simple, almost dismissive good luck.
So the unstated meaning of that final email is essentially,
you're kind of immature for not being able to handle direct communication. You're not really ready for someone like me who values honesty. It's your loss, not mine.
he completely reframes the rejection as being due to her shortcomings, not his.
Exactly. By the end, he's positioned himself as having dodged a bullet because she wasn't, developed enough for a straightforward connection.
Okay, that's quite a journey through these examples. So wrapping this deep dive up, what's the core takeaway from exploring this idea of female psychic attack?
I think it really boils down to becoming more attuned to those unspoken implications, the messages between the lines. Recognizing when communication consistently leaves you feeling confused, uncertain, or kept at a distance.
And remembering the two likely drivers the source identifies.
Yeah.
Either genuine uncertainty on her part that she struggles to express,
or sometimes a more deliberate, maybe even unconscious desire to keep your attention and validation flowing without offering real connection or commitment in return.
being alert to these patterns, maybe especially with certain types of people or in certain dynamics, can potentially save you a lot of grief and wasted energy.
Definitely. Because as the source wraps up, when someone is genuinely, unambiguously interested in being with you, this kind of confusing, doubt-inducing behavior, it just doesn't really happen. Things tend to be much clearer.
Yeah, clarity is usually a good sign. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to chew on.
Go for it.
Think back on your own interactions. Not just romantic ones, any relationship, professional, social, where maybe you felt that weird sense of confusion or felt like something unsaid was really driving things. Could unspoken implications have been at play? What might the real message have been lurking under the surface?
That's a great reflection point. Really makes you think about the nuances of how we all communicate or sometimes fail to communicate effectively.